most of you guys will remember in my last video that I stated I had some problems running Yabridge. Okay, and I'll get into what it was that I actually had a problem with. I got a little bit bored on Saturday afternoon and decided to take a second look at it. But instead of following the instructions that I was given for setting up Yabridge, I decided to apply my approach that I used for LinBST, and I found I actually got a better result. So first, let's go ahead and install Yabridge. If you're on Arch Linux, just open up your terminal, and that's sudo pacman tac at capital S for sync, Yabridge, and Yabridge Control. Okay. Nice fresh installation for you guys. All right, now, before we configure this, I want to take a little bit of time to show you how I organize my plugins because I have my digital audio workstation set up to look in specific places for plugins so that I can keep everything organized within my DAW rather than having it search out every plugin that the system has installed, because there's a lot of them that I'm just not going to use. So let me give you a show here. Okay, for instance, you're going to see here in this directory, in user lib /lv2, there are a lot of presets installed in here, and some of these could have been installed with Kdenlive. I don't really know where these came from, a lot of them. But I do know that if I go into my .lv2 folder, I installed the Chow Centaur, which is a clone for those of you who like that classic distortion sound. Okay, I also installed the Dragonfly Reverb, which was suggested by Spectre Sound Studios. This plugin is absolutely amazing. Okay, all right, and I also have Vital installed and the Zin Add sub effects. So what I've done is I essentially just made symlinks from this folder to this folder in Home Spatry LV2. The easy way to do this is select the folder, then press Shift, then press Control, and then drag it to where you want it. And then you will see now I have a new symlink. Okay? This is because I have my DAW set up to only look in my home directory for LV2 plugins. Now, obviously, I'm not going to use this one, so I'm going to delete it. Now, I know this works in Thunar and PC Man FM, but this might just work with other Linux file managers. Your mileage may vary. Inside my .bst folder, I have one folder called 0nix. In this folder, I have all of my Linux VST plugins installed here that I use. Okay, and then in these other folders, I have everything categorized. All right, so for instance, my bass, I've got the bass DLL, and then I've got an overdrive pedal, and this is a free plugin too. All right, and so I've got my DLLs in here. So before I have Yabridge Control set up these DLL files so that my DAW can use them, I'd like to take a moment to show you how I have my Wine set up. And so let's go ahead and open up a terminal now, and let's go ahead and run Wine CFG. I can close this too. Okay, now in my libraries here, the first thing I have disabled is MSCOREE. That is that insufferable message that keeps popping up in Wine asking me to install mono. Well, by finding MSCOREE from this list and then going edit and disabling it, that turns off that message and you won't see it again. Okay? Also, I have Wine D3D disabled. And what this does is it turns off 3D rendering of these plugins. It is a known fact that some Windows DLL files, when you're running them through Wine, may not properly display the items. So this override will fix that at the expense of not having any graphics acceleration on the plugin. But then again, you're just tweaking audio, right? You're not staring at a pretty user interface, I should think, right? Okay, moving right along. In desktop integration, there is one thing that really annoys me, in that a lot of times Windows plugins like to deposit things in my desktop, my document, picture folder, and that sort of thing. So what I did was, in my DAW folder, in my Reaper folder here, I created a new folder in this section and I call it add-ons. I just have assorted little bits and bobs thrown in here. Okay? And then I have a folder called Wine Dump. Okay? And pretty much anything that Wine wants to throw onto my desktop, documents, picture folder, music folder, all of these folders, downloads, templates, all of that nonsense, I've told Wine to dump it in here. Okay? Now some of these plugins are going to need access to this particular area. So by pointing them to this folder, what it's actually doing when you go into your Wine directory is go into Drive C and then Users, your username. You'll see there's all these symlinks and it points right to the Wine Dump folder. How cool is that? So now I don't have to worry about these Wine applications depositing stuff in my Linux area where, I want to keep things nice, tidy, and neat, right? Now, some of you may notice that I've got a dark theme on my Wine configurator. Well, what's nice about this is you can tweak your appearance right here. However, I just did a registry hack to make my Windows configurations appear this way, so that I get something that kind of resembles my desktop. Well, kind of, sort of. That, I love my dark themes. What can I say? So pretty much that's how I have that all set up. Before we move on to the next step, I'd like to point out the only things that I have in my Wine directory in Drive C here is I have the files that the plugins are going to be looking for, because I've moved everything into my VST directory and categorized it. Okay? And interestingly, if we look in the Drives tab that we have here, I've added one new drive letter for Wine to look at. I assigned drive letter V, for VST obviously, to homespatry.vst. This is going to come in handy because in my .vst folder here, for instance, with the base, all right, I have it point the library that it needs is right here. Okay, so sometimes I will put the libraries for some of the free plugins in the VST folder here, and it just makes it easier when you're using the Wine dialog to find the folders that the DLLs or the plugins require. It's helpful to have those items assigned to a drive letter so you can navigate to them quickly. By default, Wine does not show your hidden dot folders, but you can configure it to show them. But by assigning a drive letter to my VST directory, this is just an excellent time saver. So I wanted to point that out first. Let's go ahead and press OK. Then let's go ahead and move to my Wine directory now. Because before I complete the last step, what I'm going to do here is show you the only things that I have in Wine are things that some plugins are definitely looking for. So, for instance, yes, I was able to get the Linux version of the Ubertone drums working, but I'm happier with the Windows version. So I decided to stick with it. I've got a bunch of other Windows programs installed anyway, so why not? So in Program Data, I have the settings that are necessary for the drums, and the plugin knows to look there for them. So I'll have that there rather than having those in the .vst folder. I kind of noticed that some plugins do require the files that they're looking for to be in, where they're supposed to be in the Windows file hierarchy. So, and you're going to also have some plugins that absolutely must be in program files or the program or the common files folder. They may deposit a VST, and it may require it to be in the VST3 folder in here, and in which case then you would make a symlink to your VST or VST3 directory so your DAW can find them. One of the problems I had with Yabridge was originally I had all of my plugins stored within the Program Files Steinberg VST folder. Okay, these folders don't exist in here anymore because I've pulled all of those files and placed them into the VST directory. Because at the time I had everything symlinked to the VST3 folder, but for some reason the MT Power Drums was giving me problems, and then I had a few other plugins that started acting up. I don't know what was causing this issue, really. So I decided that I would limit to where the plugins will go, and I seem to have found a solution because since Saturday, I haven't had a single problem running any of my plugins, where before I did have issues. So having everything centrally located for me is so much better. Everything is organized, and it just makes this much easier for me to back up in case there's problems down the road. And, I can just reinstall everything, apply my licenses to the files that need them, zip bada boom. Problems are easier to solve when working through it this way. And then, of course, the directories in the Windows area, I can just back up those folders and then reimplant them into a new Wine installation if I have to. And I put that to the test today, and I found that it actually does work, which is why I'm doing this live test for you guys here. So, awesome sauce indeed. So let's open up a fresh terminal here. And then let's go ahead and tell Yabridge Control add. And then I'll just copy and paste this here. Now presently I don't have anything in the VST3 directory, so I can add it at a later time. Alright, now in order to be able to use these programs, I have to tell Yabridge Control to synchronize. So we'll do that. Okay. It's given me a warning here telling me that it's found 16 leftover files that we could use with the prune option or -p. Word of warning. If you do that, it's going to delete all these files. And of course, these are legitimate Linux files. Some of them are actually symlinks, as I've demonstrated earlier. And you really don't want it to delete those. So using the prune option is not ideal. But if I ever find that I need to do that, I can just move this directory somewhere else, because I have a lot of folders here, and then folders within folders. And that's the neat thing about Yabridge Control, because it does look into subdirectories where linvst wants the parent directory where the DLLs reside. Yabridge Control goes deeper, and it looks into the subdirectories to find all the DLLs. It can massage and make a nice little SO file to go with them. Okay, so now that we've synchronized everything, I should be able to open up all of my plugins. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my digital audio workstation, and let's put that to the test. Something I forgot to mention that can be very beneficial for you in especially when waiting for plugins to load is you might want to maybe make a startup file, or at least run, I'm going to press Alt F2 here and just run wine server -p. What it's basically going to do is it's going to run the wine server, your default wine server configuration, as a persistent, okay? And by the way, using the method that I'm demonstrating right now, all of these plugins are running in my current wine installation that I have, which is Wine Staging 7.2. Let's go ahead and open up my DAW, and my video is going to stutter a little bit while this happens. You're going to notice that it is going to scan all of these plugins, and sometimes it'll take a while. You may even see a warning pop up. Yep, there it is. All right, and so we got to give that some time to load. Okay, once all the plugins scanned, I decided to open up Meltdown, which I built in a previous episode for you guys, and it is completely loaded all of my plugins without any issues whatsoever. And then the nice thing is here, when I go into my effects browser, look how neat and organized this is. I used to have a boatload of LV2 plugins in here. Many of the items I didn't even know what they did. Now I have only what I want in here, okay? And then my VST plugins right here. My VST instruments. You'll notice I don't have any VST 3 plugins added presently, but I will eventually add some down the line. The VST 2 plugins seem to work, and then of course, you know, anything that I have as an LV2 plugin, I'd much rather have that, because those are definitely Linux native. So I'll definitely opt for those if they're available. So it's all good and dandy here. If I go, like for instance, I think the biggest stack I have in this particular one is the bass guitar, where I have the compression utility. I have the the audio to MIDI converter, and I have the ample bass stacked on top of each other. And these last two right here in this stack are Windows programs, so they're all here. And then of course, you know, the Recomp and the Zinad sub effects are Linux, but I needed that Windows program for converting audio to MIDI in this case here. So that's important. So everything just seemed to work without any issues. So without linking the VST plugin directory from the wine folder into the VST, for some reason that caused problems for me. So just moving all of those DLLs into my .vst folder really helped me out with Yabridge. But the nice thing is I have the best of both worlds, okay? Because you'll remember in my last video, okay, when I went into my terminal here, and let's go nano.bashrc, because I made some aliases. Because sometimes, I'll just, for whatever reason, forget the command. I'll draw a blank. So if I'm going to use linvst, I made an alias for that so that I can type in linvst and it will run linvst convert. Okay, and then of course I can run an alias. I changed the VST alias to Yabridge Control sync. Now, interestingly, let's say I wanted to make another directory. I could have Reaper search for VST plugins. Let's say I made a directory called VST2, and then I could put plugins that are misbehaving with Yabridge Control into the VST2 directory, and then I can have linvst link those to the same wine prefix, so you can use both of them. I've had great results with linvst, so if I wanted to, I could use both, and they would coexist just fine. Presently, running Yabridge the way I just demonstrated seems to work pretty darn good for me. So, at any rate, I figured I'd share that for you guys because I know I've seen on a number of forums some people just can't seem to wrap their head around using linvst or Yabridge Control. So I hope either one of these videos will help some of you guys who are struggling with that. Well, that's all I have for today's episode. I'm not sure what I'm going to be covering next. I know my buddy Ben is working on Storm OS, and I'm waiting on him to contact me at the Cup of Linux forum to let me know when it's finished so that I can take a look at it for him and maybe even chew him a new one. No, I wouldn't do that, would I? Would I? Well, that's all I have for now, my friends. A little bit of love goes a very long way, so please be sure to take some of your time and be excellent with somebody today. Until next time, peace out.